My name's David Russell. I'm chair of the Ipswich Democratic Town Committee. We're the sponsors of this event, and I think, like the rest of you, I'm very much looking forward to this event. I've had communication with all the candidates, and I've read and studied up a bit, but I can't say that I know them well, and I bet that's the case for everybody in the room, that we want to make informed choices, and we aren't as informed, I expect, as we'd like to be, and as we will be in a little while. I'd like to start by thanking the candidates. Round of applause, yes. There's such intense cynicism in the country about public service. Oh, those politicians, and there's, of course, some reason behind that. Our leaders have not all been exemplary by any means, but we need people who are dedicated to the common good and want to try to pool our resources and ideas and solve the problems that are persistent. And I compliment all the people here. We need more people who have some idealism and want to see what they can do to contribute. And running for Congress is not the highest profile position. You're not going to necessarily get rich, and no one's getting rich while they're campaigning. Just let's not take that for granted. That it's wonderful that we have such a contested election, 7 quality candidates to try to sort out what is going to be our judgment. This is an important position. Not state rep, U.S. rep deals with local issues, deals with national issues, deals with international issues. So it's a challenging position because you need to take care of your constituents, but you also need to respond to the nonsense that's going on in the name of the United States internationally. And how do you do all of that work at the same time? So it's a big decision that we have to sort this out. And of course, when we sort it out, the primary is September 1st. In November, we have, at this point, no announced Republicans, but I'd be surprised if there isn't going to be one. We have to unite and make sure that whoever of the 7 people behind me is the nominee, that we work together and get that person elected, because it's so important that we turn the tide of what since I started speaking, there's been some, ridiculous things, and worse than ridiculous, because it's not funny, it's consequential, what's going on in Washington under the leadership of the current White House occupant, and we need to get that turned around. One little side note, with the Ipswich Democrats, we're trying to do many different things, from some initiatives for the upcoming town meeting to connecting with national things. When you came in, there's a sign-in list. Many, and I think probably most of you are already on our email list, but if you're not already, I encourage you to sign on your way out. Every Monday I send out an email called Opportunities for the Week, which gives different ways that you can contribute. Not everybody likes to do the same things, but there's many things you can do to contribute. And we all need to find some way to do something, as Michelle Obama said a couple of years ago, because sitting on the sidelines and just stewing is both not good for you and your mental health, or good for the country. We all need to find something and pitch in a little bit times millions. It's going to happen, but we all do need to stretch ourselves if we can. Okay, what didn't I say that I need to say? Thank you to Ascension Church for renting the space to us. Laura Gresh made the flyer for our event. Beth Netz and Ingrid Miles worked on the committee with me to prepare this event. And yeah, that's basically what I got to say there. The event tonight, our format, we're going to start with 2-minute introductory statements, and we're going to go in this direction. Then we're going to have question and answer, and then we'll finish with 1-minute closing statements, and we'll go in the opposite direction. With question and answer, I'm going to ask the first question, but after that, we're going to take all the rest of the questions will come from the audience, and we'll alternate who gets to answer the question first, and we're going to give each candidate a chance to answer every question with a minute maximum there. So we won't get everyone's questions answered. I'm pretty confident to guarantee, but other people's questions will probably overlap with your concerns, and if you don't get your questions answered, all the candidates, I'm sure, will be happy to respond to you if you reach out to them individually. All right, and the two microphones. Never had two microphones before. One is for the amplification here. This one, the amplification in the room. This one is for ICAM. We don't have the event broadcast live, but we are being recorded, and local cable will broadcast the event. They'll be on the regular schedule, and for people who get our email, I'll give you the link too, so you can kind of watch it on your own time. For people who aren't here, because I did get a number of inquiries. There are a lot of people who wanted to come but can't come tonight, so our audience will hopefully multiply with those viewings as well as for those of us here in person. All righty. Okay. So let's start.
Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Bethany Andrews Beck. I'm a software engineer by trade, and I've spent 20 years cleaning up messes created by high-paid executives at tech companies like Elon Musk. I discovered that the way that we make things work better is by having workers stand up together and insist on doing our jobs well. There's a lot of pressure out there in the world to do things badly, to do things cheaply, to do things in ways that make the rich people a little bit richer at the expense of all of the rest of us. And I've spent my career organizing people to resist those pressures, to build good software that actually works for people and serves us well. And in Middleton, I discovered that the political problems we could address in similar ways. So fighting book bannings, homophobia, all of the problems that we have in our local town, when we get together, we can make those better. We can improve things, we can build on things. And then Trump got reelected, and suddenly those weren't the biggest problems I saw. And I was frustrated, like a lot of people. I think I was frustrated with national politics. I was frustrated with the way things were going, and so I stood up to challenge Seth Moulton. And then Seth Moulton dropped out, and I think I was unopposed for about 30 minutes. And now we have a bunch of people who've jumped into the race. We have some lobbyists, we have some former staffers, we have one CEO, we have a state representative down there. But I still bring something different because I have years of experience with technology, making things better, and I think that we have been failed by politics as usual. That politics as usual failed Renee Good. Politics as usual failed the people of Palestine. Politics as usual, if we let it, will fail all of us and let AI make the billionaires a little bit richer and leave us out of a job. So I'm standing up for something better than politics as usual.
Good evening. My name is John Betcha. Thank you again to the Ipswich Democrats for hosting. I am a proud Democrat. I'm born and raised in Massachusetts, been in Linfield for over 20 years. I am a lawyer by training, put myself through law school, spent a lot of time in financial services, dealing with consumer protection regulations, worked in-house for companies, also started my own consulting firm, built that up to 60 plus employees from the ground up, was CEO for a number of years there. And the most important job I have is father of 2 children. I have 2 children in Linfield High School. And why I'm running is I'm worried about their future. I'm worried about all of our futures. Really what's happening right now, running for 2 reasons. One, the government has failed us and we need to create more opportunity for folks. Under any measure, you look at the government right now, what the Trump administration has done, it's just destroying democracy. And it's really, we need to push back, and we will push back, and we'll be successful. And then you look at Congress, and you see a lot of self-serving politicians. I've never run for office, and I'm frustrated what I see in DC, of people not getting things done. On the opportunity side, again, the American dream, we've lost it. It's not achievable right now. So we need to create opportunity for folks. There's so much inequality, and how do we do that? 3 things that I want to focus on. 1, rebuilding our economy. It's creating jobs, it's lowering costs. 2, rethinking our education. Think about creating opportunity and building people up. It starts with expanding preschool, universal pre-K, through vocational schools, through job training, through higher ed, and 3, healthcare. These are all fundamental rights. Healthcare is a fundamental right, which shouldn't be taken from us. We need to expand coverages, affordable healthcare for all, and we need to make sure that we're expanding coverages in areas such as veterans benefits, elder care, mental health. And finally, I would just say the last thing is we need to rebuild community. We need to send people to DC who want to help serve this district, but also want to rebuild what's going on in the political environment. So appreciate it. Look forward to all your questions, and thank you so much.
Great to see everyone here tonight. Thank you so much. My name is Jamie Belcito, and I'd like to thank the Ipswich Democratic Town Committee for having us here, and to David as serving as the moderator. I am a working mother of 2. I'm a national advocate for mental and maternal health and a policy expert. And I'm a Democrat who's not going to fall in line for political expediency. I've had the great honor of serving as your state representative, and I flipped that seat by the help of Ipswich that was held by a Republican for more than 160 years. So thank you, and hats off to you. Like you, I am disgusted by what's happening in Washington, and Democrats are not getting it done, and towing the party line is, to me, what's gotten us into this mess. It's time for Congress to show up for people and end this nightmare. And David, you're correct, something probably happened during the time that you spoke, and we don't even know what that is yet. That's what I'm ready to do here today. I'm an everyday person. I grew up in this district. I'm raising my family here. I was raised in a divorced household, and I know how tough that can be. I'm the daughter of a Vietnam veteran and a proud union floor layer. I'm the product of the Reading Public School system. My brother and I became the first in our family to graduate from college after I paid my way through Salem State and he paid his way through with the GI Bill. I'm a mom worried about my 2 daughters and their education, their fundamental rights. They have less rights than we do, and I can't believe that I'm actually standing here speaking about that. I'm a person who knows what it means to have lost a job, have no health insurance, worry about keeping a roof over my family's head. Our leaders in Washington are completely out of touch with hardworking people who send them there. We need people in Congress with real-life experiences who know what it's like to have anxiety when the utility bill comes in, when that market basket bill goes up a little more and a little more every single time. Combined with my policy and advocacy experience, I know I'm the voice that we need to represent our district, and I look forward to doing that for you in Congress. I can start on day 1 and get stuff done. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rick Jacobs, and simply put, for me, this is about public service and not politics. These are lifelong values I learned from my parents, my mom, a family practice doctor, my dad, a public employee union. For the last 11 years, I've served as the district director and chief of staff to this district. A district my wife was raised in, where we decided to settle down, where we've raised our 2 children. And every day I've woken up thinking about how to improve the lives of the people of the 39 cities and towns of this district. What does that look like? That means thinking about how we protect the vitality of the Ipswich River while ensuring that the 350,000 people that get their drinking water from it continue to have safe drinking water. It means ensuring that the clammers have access to the clamming beds. It means ensuring that we can dredge the river so that it's open to recreational boaters. Prior to this, I was the CEO of the Massachusetts Nonprofit Network. I created a retirement program for frontline nonprofit workers, the first of its kind in the nation by passing a state law. That got the attention of Governor Deval Patrick, who put me on the board of the Massachusetts Health Connector to save health insurance for tens of thousands of residents when the ACA health insurance exchange failed. That is what my career has been about. For the last 3 years, I've served as chief of staff. So not only do I feel that I have an unparalleled knowledge of the issues of this district, I understand how to get things done in Washington. But I had a choice. I had a choice to move there, or I had a choice to remain in the district. And I remained here in the district because I understood the way in which spending too much time in DC warps your perspective. The DC insiders are what got us into this trouble. They are not what is going to get us out of this trouble. That's why I'm running to be your congressman, and I would appreciate your support.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Coe, and I believe that we have a choice. We can sit back and roll over while this president sends mass men to arrest our neighbors in the streets with his insane tariffs that drive prices up for you and me, or we can fight back for the country that we believe in. I have 2 German, Irish, Italian, Lebanese, Korean American kids, and I want them to grow up in a country that is proud of what got us here, a country that welcomes immigrants from everywhere, that thinks about our most vulnerable every single day. One side of my family comes from a small village south of Beirut, Lebanon. Another side comes from a fishing village off the coast of South Korea. He came here and was exiled because he refused to bend the knee to a dictator. And I've seen government work well for people. And we need to get back to elected officials who are focused on the right things. When I was in the Biden White House, we capped prescription drugs of insulin at $35 a month. It used to be at $300 a month. In City Hall in Boston, where I was chief of staff, we work closely with unions and businesses because when the middle class and unions do well, so do businesses. And when I was an Andover town selectman, we worked to keep the town on a healthy financial path for generations to come. And over the course of the last year, some of you may have seen me taking it directly to MAGA, whether it be on Newsnight on CNN, taking it to Scott Jennings, or directly on Fox News Sunday, because Democrats have the story to tell. We need to stop taking health care away from people and give Medicare for all to everyone. We need to stop with these insane tariffs and price gouging and take our prices back down. And we need to stop with the most ridiculous tax cut in the history of this world and give that money to the middle class for things like childcare and universal pre-K. And so if you believe what I believe, that we need politicians focused on the right things, that we need to stand up for our most vulnerable, then I ask for you to join our campaign and join our fight. And if we are successful, then I promise that American dream story, the one that made my life possible and all of our lives possible, will be around for generations to come. So thank you, and let's go.
Thank you, Rick. Hi, everybody. I'm Mariah Lancaster. It is wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having us. I am a veterinarian. I am a public servant, and I am really proud to be running here for Congress in the Massachusetts 6th. I grew up here in Northeast Mass. Thank you, Trump. Dancing with it. I graduated from UMass Amherst and went to veterinary school at Tufts, and then I worked as an emergency veterinarian across New England from Providence to Portsmouth for years before pivoting my career into public policy. I went into public policy because I saw firsthand just how broken our healthcare systems are for our pets and for us. Going to work in policy, I was hoping to make a difference at a higher level, make a bigger impact. So I went and I worked at the State Department for 2 years, and I was combating corruption around the globe there. And then I worked for 2 Democratic congresswomen on the Hill. And what I saw is that Congress is failing. It's failing us. We see it right now, every day. And it is up to us as Democrats, as Americans, to choose something different. And so that's why I'm running. If we want to make this system work better for working people, we have to send working people to Washington. So I want to be a new kind of Democrat, to enact bold, progressive change, to reshape what the future of the Democratic Party will look like, because we have that opportunity this year more than ever. In this race, I hope to focus on transforming our healthcare system, on investing in a renewable energy revolution, and in ensuring that we have a strengthened education system for students all across the country, all the way from, as multiple other candidates have mentioned, universal pre-K through secondary education, making sure that every kid that wants to go to college can do so without being indebted for the rest of their lives to a debt they can never pay off. These are things that we can accomplish, mainly by rooting out corruption and restoring our democracy. So I hope that you'll join me, and thank you so much for the time. I look forward to answering your questions.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Trom Nguyen, and it's such a great opportunity to be able to introduce myself to you today. I'm running for Congress because our government's in crisis. I've lived both sides of government. I've seen what happens when government fails us and what's possible when government actually works for us. My story didn't begin here. It began under an authoritarian regime. My family and I came from Vietnam. My dad had served with the Americans during the Vietnam War and was a political prisoner for 8 years. We lived in complete poverty in Vietnam and came over to the US with $100 to our name. We lived in public housing in Lawrence, and I saw what it took for my parents to provide a new life for us here. They stretched every dollar, and day by day, I saw what is possible. And with the support of community and our friends, I was able to be the first in my family to go to college and then law school. And then rather than going to a big firm, I graduated top of my class, but instead of that, I went to legal services, where I served immigrants, low-wage workers, survivors of domestic violence, veterans, etc. And in doing that work, I really saw the power of policy. And when you have champions, when you have public servants who actually stand with the people, what difference that makes. And this is why we have a choice here. Whether we want the status quo, expecting a different result, or we could elect a public servant who cares for the people and stand with the people, champions who are willing to speak up and completely change the script on Democrats. We need to hold Republicans accountable, but we also need to hold ourselves accountable to make real changes. Nothing's gonna happen if we continue with the same old, same old. Our neighbors, our friends are in fear right now. We need strong champions who will fight, and I'm that person. I hope that you will stand with me. As someone who's been in office for the last 7 years, I beat MAGA, and I was able to get things done, and I hope that you'll join me in getting things done and making sure that we make a change in Congress and for the rest of the country. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, everyone. So our questions, if you would like to ask a question, kind of like as we do at town meeting, we'll ask people to line up at the mics over there. And I'm going to ask a first question, but if you have a question that you want to ask, you could start lining up there. A note to people who have questions, please don't give a long speech in introduction to your question. You know, be concise. And the question, please try to frame it as something that'll be answerable by all, not about one detail about one person's background, but we want for each question to hear more from each of these candidates, and excuse me, and we will do that, and we'll start on this with Bethany down here, and then closing statements. Trom will be the first to go. My question, and I'm sure this is one that's on everyone's minds. We have the daily deluge of destruction coming out of Washington. And how is it that the Democrats are going to change this? We have midterm elections coming. You know, we need to figure what's the path forward to change the direction of the country. So my question for the candidates is, how is it that the Democratic Party best finds its way forward, and what can you do to contribute to that change? And while they're answering, if you have questions, please start lining up over there at the mics. 1 minute for each candidate. So we have, just as we're asking the questioners to be concise, yes, on each of these subjects, what's the way forward? 1 hour, you could each speak well, I'm sure, but yeah, what could be the kind of highlights of your position in a relatively brief amount of time?
Yeah, so I think everyone's hoping that we win the elections and then magically we have all the power and we can just change things. I am prepared even if we don't. I know what I will do if Trump refuses to seat the next Congress. I think that we need people in Congress who are prepared to take direct action, who are prepared to stand up, be brave, stand for what we stand for, take clear positions instead of trying to triangulate to try to make donors happy. say one thing to donors and something else to voters. We need to stand for what we believe in. We need to give people something positive to vote for. And we need to be prepared that even if we don't have formal power, we can still use our offices. We can still use the platform that we are given. We can use the powers that already exist in the Constitution, in the law, and stand up to whatever is coming. I was shocked that nobody went to the East Wing and stood in front of those wrecking balls. To me, that is the kind of action that you take when you are faced with totalitarianism. When you're faced with a tyrant, you stand up and you take action. And that's what my background in activism and protest and organizing at the local level prepares me to do.
So yeah, I think one starts with Democrats taking back the House, and we are going to do that. But we also need people in Congress who are going to vote with courage and conviction and stand up for democracy, and that's the key. Right now, again, too much voting with party leadership, too much not doing what's right. And then to get things done, we actually got to build consensus, believe it or not. We got to work with Republicans. And so I've been in business for over 30 years, and to get deals done, you got to work with the other side. I've been on government working groups. You have to educate. You have to find common ground. And there should be common ground on things that are very simple, fundamental rights, education, healthcare, things that people, when you wake up in the morning, everybody wants the same thing. They want to have good things for their family. And I think we can find that common ground to get things done. And so Democrats got to start messaging that, working together on the things that people care about, the things that people in this community care about. And that's what I'll do when I go to DC.
Thanks for the question, and I am the town moderator, so I will move that right along if anything gets stuck. You know, Democrats have to stop talking and start doing. I'm very tired of Democrats coming and using stories like mine and then turning around and not doing the work, but asking me for my vote. And not so much in a community like this, but try being in Lynn, try being in Salem, try being in communities that have very difficult situations at hand where ICE is constantly there. What I plan on doing is continuing to look at communities like Ipswich who are organizing. That's where we're going to win these races, by our continued organizing. And when I get to DC, we need to codify Roe v. Wade. We need to pass comprehensive immigration reform. We need to pass gun reform, Voters' Right Act, end gerrymandering, health care for all, and get money out of our elections. We had the House, the Senate, and the White House, and we didn't do it, and we need to ask our leadership to do that, and that's what I look forward to doing when I get down there. Thank you.
We need to win the midterms. We need to win the presidency in 2 years, and we need to fight like hell for every moment in between to ensure that we still have a democracy that we recognize. But that is table stakes. If you aren't committed to that sitting up here, then you shouldn't be running for office. And candidly, I feel confident that everyone up here is going to fight on your behalf. But what I don't hear people talking about is, what does the day after Donald Trump look like? I'm an optimist. I believe there will be a day after Donald Trump, and we need to have a serious conversation about what the Democratic Party looks like. We need to stand firm with our values while creating a bigger tent, bringing people back. We do that by talking about kitchen table issues. We do that by talking about the cost of living, reducing the cost of housing, energy, healthcare, higher education. And we do that by bringing people to the table and helping them understand that government works, showing them that government works, showing them that government listens. I have a mentor in my life who said, meet people where they're at, talk about the things they care about, and do something about that. And that's the approach we need to take as a party.
I worry that we may not make it to the midterms unless we fight harder as a party right now. Every single day, this president does something more crazy and more of a trample on the Constitution than the day before. And this media environment, and candidly, most of the elected officials in DC are letting him off the hook, either because they're afraid or they don't quite understand. I worked at a White House for 2.5 years. I worked in administration for 4. I know the playbook that he's trying to run, and I know the agencies that he's trying to pillage. And if we don't fight back and up our game as Democrats, we will never win. And if we do win, and we will, we need to use our subpoena power to bring about every single person, every corporate head who bent the knee, every lawyer who bent the knee, every funder of the East Wing who bent the knee, and demand that they know under the pains and penalty of perjury what Donald Trump threatened him with and what they promised him. That's what we need to do.
I really appreciate a lot of what other folks have been saying, but I think there's a lot of focus on Trump as a human being and not a lot on the infrastructure that put him there. We also, as Trump said, we need to be really, really accountable as Democrats for why we're here in the first place. We, I think, spend a lot of time thinking about the fact that we need to regain power and what we're going to do when we do, and not a ton of time thinking about how did we lose in the first place, how did we get here. And so we have to take accountability for the fact that this party left a lot of working people behind, not just here, but across the country. There are a lot of folks that choose to vote Republican, and we need to be doing more to get into those communities and flipping those votes back, because that's how we take the Senate back. That's how we don't just coast by, clipping around the edges, winning a thin majority. That's how we truly get the supermajorities that we need to get the government that we need to pass really comprehensive reforms to change the future of this country. But we're not going to do that without changing hearts and minds in some places very different from here. Then we'll be able to do reforms, and we can actually start planning for the future of what we want to see in our government.
So of course we have to focus on everyday issues because people are really tired right now. People are really struggling with the rising costs, but we can also deliver results, and we can be unapologetic about fighting for our democracy and freedom. And I was just talking with someone earlier before this started. We're not in normal times, people. We can't play with the same playbook. We need to be bold, we need to stand up, and we actually need exciting candidates that people want to support and get behind with the lived experience and the professional experience, because people need hope right now. And I agree with Rick. I'm an optimist as well. There will be a time after Trump. And so how do we organize now so that we can be prepared for that? I'm a union member. I organize for a living. And this is what I'm excited to do, is to work with you all to get people excited. And this is exciting right here to have 7 candidates running for office. We need more of this, and we need you to be a part of this to make sure that we are loud and clear of what we want and what our values are, leading with moral clarity.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Before I ask my question, I do want to make the point. I, too, look forward to after Trump, but I just want to make the point that's probably in all of our minds, which we're making a big mistake to identify it solely as Trump. What comes after Trump in the form of Trump could be even more catastrophic. So, anyway, my question is, it'll go to each one of you, I guess. I want to ask, having been paying very close attention to what's going on, and as we said, day to day, moment by moment, I personally have pinpointed some people serving in office, various offices, who I have been very heartened by, encouraged by. I just want to ask, could you name someone working today who you do admire, you do respect, do believe needs some acclaim and support, and please tell us why? Thank you.
So I want to start by saying that I appreciate your question, and I think that for us, there are many people that I admire, especially in the Massachusetts delegation. That's why we're leading the country in so many ways. And even here in Massachusetts, we haven't elected many women, right? Only in recent years, we've got Senator Warren and Reps Clark, Presley, and Trahan. And I think that it's important for us to think about the first, and also what it means for potentially having a first immigrant to represent our area. I've always been very not fitting into any box, and so I've never had anyone to actually who looks like me and that I could see as someone I definitely want to be or become. But what I think is important is to have someone who delivers results, someone who leads with moral clarity, and those are the people I'll be seeking once I get into Congress, to be able to work with them to move this country forward and to move Congress forward.
A great answer. I am going to answer the question a little bit more literally as well. I've got kind of a short list, and this is not my complete list of folks that I admire and love. The first one that popped to mind is obviously very topical of Zohran Mamdani in New York City, doing incredible work and really showing where, if you don't allow the status quo to get in your way, how you can really charge ahead and accomplish things quickly. Obviously, that is a very singular role as mayor of New York City. That is very different from a first-time freshman congressperson, but I think that's incredible. Here in the Mass delegation, Warren is an absolute champion on anti-corruption, which is a big piece of how we make any sort of difference in our politics. And then another one of my favorites is Congressman McGovern for Mass 2. It does incredible work on childhood nutrition and just really investing in an agricultural process here in Massachusetts. So those are kind of my top ones. And then cutting back to my last question as well, one of the ways that I think we as Democrats can really empower communities all across the country is taking a tour like Bernie and AOC did, of getting into communities that don't typically see Democrats and really helping to inspire communities that might not otherwise have access to the level of democratic politics that we do. So that's kind of that milieu of incredible heroes.
My person is also Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but for a very specific reason. I think a question many of you may be wondering is, how will you be effective as a freshman member of Congress? And instead of deciding that she was going to spend 30 years working her way up the system, she built a platform for the issues that matter to the Democratic Party, and therefore created leverage for her district, where candidly leadership like Nancy Pelosi could not ignore her because she was too powerful. And so you should demand an elected official from this district who understands how to build a platform, build a movement in a way that they can't be ignored. And I've built a platform the last 6 or 8 months or so called the People's Cabinet. Some of you may have heard about it. 7 million people have viewed our content, and it's about calling out this administration and talking about where the Democratic vision should be. I will bring that to DC. I will make sure that leverage is there, and so that this district cannot be ignored.
If you ask me which member I would most like to model my career after, it would be Rhett McGovern. He's someone who you would be just as likely to see hanging out in a bar in Worcester, talking about the issues of the day as you would in the halls of Congress. And he's one of the most powerful members as the ranking member of the Rules Committee. But since Mariah already took Jim McGovern, I'll select someone else, which is 6 months ago, I had the good fortune to sit down and have a conversation with Rep. Sarah McBride, the first trans member of Congress. And it was ostensibly about trans rights, but we delved into a whole host of issues. And I was absolutely struck by the grace and the thoughtfulness with which she approached the work she does, and her willingness to invite people into the tent. This is someone who has undergone a level of hate and vitriol and discrimination that I couldn't possibly fathom, and yet she still was able to see the humanity in other people and recognize the ways in which we needed to bring people along, bring people under the tent of the Democratic Party, because that's what we need to do to win. That's what we need to do to be in the majority. That's what we need to do to protect underrepresented people's rights. And I was blown away by that interaction.
Come on, Rick. You took my Sarah McBride, who wears fabulous suits and is absolutely fantastic and is a former state legislator, and I had the privilege and honor of working with her over this past Congress and have a little bit of hope to give the constituent who brought this question to the floor. I work in maternal health and mental health, 2 issues that nobody really cares about, to be very frank with you. I just got word yesterday that we were getting our $20.5 million out of the Labor H bill. That was 0.02% of the entire bill. I just worked the past 9 months to make sure that we didn't cut maternal mortality, infant mortality, sudden infant death syndrome, put the baby on the back, you name it, and all of these programs were under my favorite, chronic diseases, because apparently being a woman is a chronic disease. So I did also want to say Julie Johnson, who is the first married gay woman in Congress, Democrat from Texas. And she and I work in the Digital Health Caucus together. And there are phenomenal women who we should be looking up to. And I truly look forward to working with them as a member in the House and being your inspiration. Thank you.
So my father was a selectman in Milford, Mass, and so I have a place in my heart for local politicians. I mean, he taught me the value of true public service and humility, and I think we see that with some of our local governments, our mayors. I look at the mayor in Lynn, Jared Nicholson, who's doing a tremendous job in terms of a model of building community, building coalitions and groups of nonprofits and businesses and educators. I think that's what we need to look at. At the state level, our governor and our lieutenant governor are doing a good job in terms of, hey, it's whack-a-mole with this budget, right? The trickle down, everything is getting cut at the federal level, and now we need to try to figure out how to fill those gaps. And so, you know, I look at those folks, but right now, the battle's in D.C. And like I said, the reason why I'm up here, the reason why I'm running is because we need people in here who are going to fight harder and get the job done.
So I will also say Zoran Mandami, but for a slightly different reason. I see Zoran Mandami having built a movement where it is not just about him, as talented a communicator as he is. It is about standing up for policy that ordinary people can understand instead of trying to cut corners and help as few people as possible. Stand up for free buses for everybody. Stand up for childcare for everybody. Stand up for things that will help all of us, instead of trying to slice off the smallest piece that we can possibly find and give as little help as possible, believing that government can do something for us, that government is just another word for all of us together, means that he built a movement where over 100,000 people volunteered and knocked on a door. That means that it's no longer just about him as one person. And for Congress, if we bring a movement like that, it isn't about any one of us having to do the work. It is about all of us standing together, calling our senators, having the pressure campaigns to accomplish our goals.
Hi, my name is Paul Horvitz. I live in Newbury. Thank you, candidates, for being here. I count myself a very lucky voter to have an array like we have tonight. My question is, if we have midterm elections, Hakeem Jeffries is likely to put his name forward as the next speaker. Will you vote for him, or would you be inclined to look for an alternative? Thank you.
Thanks for your question. I think we need to look at all our options. I think that's why we're in this situation right now. You know, party leadership, obviously, they've been part of the problem, and we need new solutions. We need new people to come into Congress. Unfortunately, we're seeing people retire or leave Congress. Sane people are leaving because of the dysfunction. But we need to go in there and we need to shake things up in a real way. If Leader Jeffries is the right person, and you know we've had a fair process and we look at other candidates, then I would support him. But otherwise, I think we need to find the best person to really lead our party in a real critical time.
Paul, thank you for the question. Here are my thoughts. Say I'm elected, which I want you to do that, okay? You're going to get a real one in there. You sit down with leadership and you say exactly what I said. What are we going to do to codify Roe? What are we going to do for the Voters' Right Act? How are we going to address this immigration? What are we going to do about money in our politics? I want answers. I don't want you talking on CNN or saying something in front of the cameras and then nothing happens. I want a commitment on 3 issues that I believe our district wants to be addressed, and then I will make my informed decision. If leadership is ready to step up for the challenge and do what the Republicans have done to us, and that's to jam stuff down our throats with absolutely no one else's input, then I'm on board. But I'm not going to make that decision until I'm down there and hope that we are in that position to make those decisions. Thank you.
I appreciate the question, and I understand the sentiment, because I think we're all frustrated with Democratic leadership. We need to diversify our leadership, so it's not just folks from the coastal elites. We need people from the Rust Belt. We need leaders that represent what our electorate looks like and should look like. I think it's too soon to answer the question about Leader Jeffries. I think we have to see what the results of the midterm or election are. He has a challenging job. He has to hold together a Democratic caucus. He needs to deliver the midterms elections. And if he can do that, he deserves consideration again. But I think it's just too soon to tell. We have to wait until those midterm results.
I'm entirely underwhelmed by the leadership in DC in general. I'm not just saying people who are elected officials, but how hard we're fighting for people and how much people are struggling right now. I don't think that they are meeting the moment. I don't think that calling a press conference and chanting all day long is doing anything to stop this president. I think we need to be fighting a lot harder. Having said that, I believe that if Speaker Jeffries does come up for being Speaker and wants to be Speaker, and he delivers an overwhelming majority of the House, he does deserve consideration, and I agree with Representative Belcito. If he's willing to if we do that, we win back the House, and he's willing to make reassurances that he's going to fight price gouging, that he's going to fight for health care, and that he's going to take on this president every step of the way, and that we will actually implement a Democratic vision, I will support him.
I am sick and tired of corporate Democrats being the leadership of this party. I think it's time for progressives to have a shot at leadership, personally. I think we need somebody who will full-throatedly commit to banning stock trading amidst all of, I don't care whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, if you are profiting off your office, you shouldn't be there. And I am not comfortable saying that I will support somebody who has shown me absolutely no reason to support them on that front. So I would be very interested in exploring alternatives and seeing who could be a leader, who could build a coalition, because at the end of the day, the goal is not to fracture the Democratic Party the moment we're in power. It is to build the coalition and make sure that we keep all those votes together. That is what made Pelosi so effective. But honestly, I just don't think that Jeffries is doing that job now, and so I don't really see why he would be doing a better job in any other environment. And honestly, if he was getting the kind of overwhelming support that my colleagues up here are talking about, he doesn't necessarily need my vote, so I'm comfortable throwing my weight behind somebody else.
Well, I think we're all in agreement. It's about accountability. It's about having leadership that actually delivers and does what they say they're going to do. And it's about making investments in people. I don't want to discount Speaker Jeffries just yet, but I also want to see what's out there. And this is why we also need to work on building that pipeline to actually get regular people, to get them into leadership, so then we actually have people to vote for who could actually make a difference. And so it's a process. It's going to be a process that takes all of us working together. And I do hope that we will have someone who could inspire us and inspire younger people, particularly, who are feeling so disenchanted right now. And so I'm excited to see what that would look like.
Beth. Then Mariah will give you the next one.
Very much. I think that if we win the next election with the same Democratic Party that we won with in 2020, it is not going to make a difference. We saw already that the establishment failed to stop Trump, failed to address the systematic problems. And I'm tired of people in government seeming gullible, taking promises of a vote on health care, taking promises of a future considerations. Oh, of course we'll give you a fair hearing. No, we need people who have a track record of having delivered for working people. And that's what I would be looking for. But I don't think we know yet who's going to be in the House. I don't think we know yet who's going to win, because across the country, people are stepping up and challenging the establishment and demanding better.
Hi, I'm Sandra Yarney. I live in Ipswich, and I have a very different kind of question to ask you, and it's very pointed. Yesterday, I was at a podcast, and I heard Matthew Ho, who is a former Marine, a former State Department official, talking about the fact that war always has unpredictable consequences. And I am very concerned about the Democratic Party being as much of a war party as the Republican Party. And as we all know, a majority of people want an end to the war, to the conflict in Gaza, and we want to be out of Ukraine. So I'm asking each one of you, how will you vote? Will you vote yes or no to shipping, supplying, buying, selling arms to the Israelis or anybody involved in the Ukraine conflict?
Sandra, I am so glad I get the first crack at this question. So, having worked at the State Department for 2 years, I had a front row seat to a lot of foreign aid and international funding, foreign desks. I was in what's called a program office, where you are administering foreign aid, but I had a lot of friends that were in more of the policy offices for various countries on those policy desks. And I still do have a lot of those friends. They've lost a lot of folks, I will say. This administration has really gutted our diplomatic corps. So in terms of the international stage, our reputation is damaged. Because I have 30 seconds left, I will lead with the straightforward answer, which is I will not vote for a single dime to go to a country that is violating human rights. Fundamentally, full stop. The question of Ukraine is a little more complicated with the recent invasion. We can call it what it is, the coup in Venezuela. We are seeing where this administration is really digging in to try to get a grip on every single piece of resource that it can. And in terms of what that means for Russia, is we've given them the green light in terms of continuing the conflict in Ukraine. So I worry about saying that we wouldn't be able to support them anymore when we know what would happen. But fundamentally, I stand by my answer, not a dime if we're not abiding by the Leahy Act.
So as I mentioned to you, I came from a war-torn country. So I know what war does to people and how it passes down for generations. And my goal is to find peace. And I don't think that it's about accountability. We should never give a blank check to anyone, even allies, without accountability on what they're doing. And I completely agree with you. Human rights is number one and the utmost important thing. And that's what we need to be focusing on. And for all of these conflicts, it's really about us rebuilding diplomatic relations. I've traveled across the world this past year in my role as an elected official, trying to build some relations. And our reputation, our relationships with other countries are completely torn. And so for us, it's going to take a lot of rebuilding and conversations and negotiations to really get us back to where we need to be.
Well, first of all, I think a key part of this discussion is the rabid hijacking by both parties on defense spending and the blank checks that we are trying to cut that are putting us more into debt to add, for example, $500 billion to our defense budget, which, by the way, we have a president who claims that he's for a strong military. But somehow absent about this is about how we take care of our veterans in the process. Well, let me fill you all in, because I'm sure you're tracking this anyway. 80,000 VA jobs. I used to work very close with the VA as the Deputy Cabinet Secretary. 80,000 VA jobs. He proposed cutting that process burn pit claims for our neighbors who are suffering coming back from the battlefields. So that's the first thing. The second thing, as an Arab American, this is something incredibly personal to me, somebody who still has family in Lebanon. And so to see the atrocities happening in Gaza, the innocent lives being lost, every single dime that we give as a country to any country should come with conditions, and we should uphold that. And I should say, completely independently, what happened on 10/7 was an atrocity on its own.
I think one of the dangers that we need to recognize is what happened recently in Venezuela. Because I think when you look at the actions our country took in Venezuela, you look at the way someone like Stephen Miller and other members of the Trump administration went on the Sunday morning talk shows and talked about how we had the right to exercise our authority in the Western Hemisphere. What we did was we gave a green light to people like Vladimir Putin to continue what they're doing in Ukraine. We gave a green light to people like Xi Jinping to invade places like Taiwan. This is incredibly dangerous. We need to reclaim the moral high ground as a country and as a party. I think we have a responsibility to stand up for the Ukrainians. This is a critical relationship. Again, because it shows the world that you need to respect the sovereign borders of another nation. With respect to Israel and Palestine, we need to have a two-state solution. Israel has the right to self-determination as a Jewish state. Palestine has right to self-determination as Palestinians. They all should have a right free from violence and from murder. And Americans have a responsibility as a global superpower to stand up for both parties and to ensure those rights. And I believe that we do that in part by making sure that any and all aid going to any country has strong human rights standards attached to it.
Sandra, where'd you go? Thank you. Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. I do want to throw around the D word, diplomacy, and I do believe, having been to the Soviet Union when it was Soviet, I use great moisturizer. I don't look that old, but I do believe that there's something to be said there. We've got to get rid of Putin. He is all the things that we know, and I do believe that there is a point of diplomacy with Ukraine. In regards to the Middle East, I too am an Arab American, and I have family in Syria and have seen this continued destruction my entire life that I've been here. This is a very fraught situation that we have continued to fund, and I believe the Biden administration absolutely punted this, and that the Democrats killed it, and that it's why we lost Michigan, and it's why we're sitting in this room right here talking about it. And so I stood up and said that I believe Palestinians should stop being bombed to death, and that it was a human rights issue. And I was called on the phone and told point blank by this party, you will never be able to run for anything ever again. And I don't care, because it is about human rights, and it's about humans, and anyone who's brought a human into this world knows that it's about taking care of people, and that's what this community's here doing, and that's what I plan on doing in Congress.
So there's a reason why we now have a Department of War versus a Department of Defense, which is ironic for someone who really is so desperate for a Nobel Peace Prize, but this president, this administration has made it clear that they just want to do whatever they want and go after whatever country they want, and democracy is at risk. And our foreign policy needs to be protecting democracy. And so when you look at Ukraine, we need to support Ukraine. We don't need to send blank checks. I agree with Jamie, we need to focus on diplomacy. We've alienated our allies. We need to get those relationships back. God forbid we need them for some other conflict that comes up with some other foes. And so we need to protect our country, our democracy, and work through that. I agree, obviously, on Gaza. We can't be supporting human rights violations. It's something that's just very disturbing. And when you look at all these things that happen on the world stage, again, we need to focus on what's right and regain our spot as a leader on the world stage.
I started my political life protesting the Iraq War, and I think that history has proven 18-year-old Beth correct. And I trust, at the time, it was because my high school friends were going to be shipped overseas to pursue oil, to pursue economic interests of the elite, not for our gain, not about us, not about our safety. I think we've seen the failures of our blank check support for Israel. Beyond just the human loss of life, we've watched AI be used to pick random houses. We have a computer just pick a house out of a hat and bomb it. And we need to, in this day and age of modern warfare, we need to take responsibility for how our resources are being used, the impact of sanctions, not just bombs, and where we are standing up for our values versus where we are standing up for dollars.
Dave, now I don't know what I'm doing. All right.
Hi, thanks very much. I'm Whitney Hatch. I live in Ipswich. Part of my Whitney Hatch. I live in Ipswich. I told him I'd bend over to talk into the microphones. Part of my volunteer opportunities is to chair the board of an organization called Issue One, which is focused on reforming our political system in the country, particularly with campaign finance reform and other things. We're hyper-focused on Republicans, but that's increasingly desperate and difficult by day. My whole focus has been on reform and trying to figure out how we try to get Congress to focus on its Article I responsibilities, which is it's absolutely not doing right now. Our answer is that we need to organize this room and rooms across the country to put pressure on you all that get elected to actually do your jobs instead of fall into the trap of fundraising and other things. So with that preamble, it strikes me that since Newt Gingrich rode into town, Congress has become increasingly dysfunctional, and I think the fault goes to stuff we were talking about earlier with leadership. Leadership is under command and control. There's no opportunity for individuals in Congress to develop relationships with other members, including Democrats with Republicans. And until people begin to cross the aisle and talk together and try to solve problems together, we're going to be living in this bifurcated world. So my question is, when you go to Congress, what three things would you think of needing to reform in Congress as the way it functions?
Did you just ask me to solve world peace, Whitney? Is that what you did? Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Listen, first and foremost, I'm going to go back to what you said. I want to have coffee with you, okay? Because here's the thing. Me, the people that I'm making my phone calls to, the $5, $25, $100 donors, we got people on this state, I don't know what I want to call this, on the gym floor here, who have millions of dollars in their bank already, right? But I'm supposed to shake people down for $3,500 donations. It went up from the last time I ran it. It was $2,600 in 2020. Now it's $3,500. That's someone's rent. That's a whole other issue, is housing, right? We have failed the people when we say we got to bring Canadian elections in, as far as I'm concerned. 3 months, everyone gets the X amount of dollars, that's the end of it, right? But it's become a form of elitism, right? When I see in Politico that someone's flying into Nantucket during August recess and their entry to a fundraiser for a Democrat is $10,000 a plate, don't tell me that that's the party of the working person, okay? Because it's not. I never been to that sort of fundraiser. Why? Because I can't pay $10,000. Anyone else here? I don't know. I thought maybe one of you was going to raise your hand, okay? Some of you live up the neck. But this needs to be reformed, first and foremost, and let's you and I have coffee. I know Zilly, who owns Zoomies, and maybe I can get us a free cup of coffee. Thank you. Okay. To the right.
Being in Congress is a privilege, and being in Congress is public service, and we forgot that. And you see what's happening right now is, yes, I mean, as a first-time candidate, I am just astounded at what the system is, and I think you have 7 people running, but I think you have a lot more, or you have some different people that won't run because of the money, because of the special interest. And so I think in reforming Congress, we need to look at that. We need to look at the rules to take the money out of it. We need to look at the rules that where people in Congress are benefiting. Talk about insider trading, certainly things like that should be, off the board. And we could even look at things like term limits. I mean, I think 2 years, you're constantly running for office as a congressperson. And Senate 6 years is too long, right? And so you're not incentivized to get things done. And we need to have people to go into DC, and whatever reforms we have is all focused on getting back to public service and allowing folks to get things done without special interests, without these distractions.
So I'll work with anybody who wants to work on my issues. And one thing that Newt Gingrich did was get rid of earmarks, which meant that Congress can't strike the deals that they used to. It means that the most important thing for a congressperson is getting on Fox News or CNN tomorrow, because that's how they raise the big bucks, is how do you go out there and make the biggest. So I think that there's some room for deals where I'll say something you can react to. Like, I'll say something nice about communism if you'll support my bill. And then you can go yell on Fox News and I can get things. Like, I think there's some creativity there. But there's also solutions like constitutional amendments. I think that we can use the powers we already have in Article 3 to say that campaign finance, the Supreme Court doesn't get to throw it out. There are tools that we have had for 250 years and we've never used. And using those is going to be a little bit faster than trying to institute a parliamentary system, as interesting as that constitutional amendment will be.
Woody, thank you for this question, because the system is absolutely broken, and it's completely rigged. And folks may not realize this, but we are actually facing down another government shutdown on the 31st of this month. I'm proposing legislation, I'm calling it the Do Your Goddamn Job Act, that would do three things. It would make sure that members of Congress are not paid during a government shutdown, that Congress must be in session during a government shutdown, and you may not fundraise a single dime while the government is closed down. But beyond that, the three things I think we need to do, we have to take money out of politics. Campaign finance reform is a must, and Jamie's absolutely right. There's already an obscene amount of money in this race from DC insiders and their millionaire and billionaire benefactors who want to buy this seat for one of theirs. Number two, we need to look at election reform. We need nonpartisan redistricting commissions. We need to evaluate whether something like ranked choice voting is necessary. And number three, we need full-scale civic renewal. Vastly expand citizen national service, create a program for civics in our high school, and reinvigorate local media. Do that by taxing the social media companies that are isolating us, that are causing the divisions of this country, taxing their digital ad revenue by 50%, we can fund all of those programs.
Round of applause for Ray. That was good. A lot of the ideas have already been stated, but the one thing about money in politics that is really important that I think every person who is a candidate in this race should take a pledge is no corporate PAC money, not just as a candidate, but if you are elected for the entire time you are in DC. Why is that? Because, let's be honest, in an election, a lot of these corporations don't give in primaries. But as soon as you are there, they will take time to meet with you because they want to give you a check to influence your votes. That is happening with Republicans, and that is happening just as much with Democrats. We need to stop the corporate money in politics. And if I'm fortunate enough to get elected as your member of Congress, I will not take a dime of corporate money as your elected official.
Sorry, can I rebut for just a moment, please? I do want to say that I have put out a people's pledge, and there's only one person on this stage that has agreed with that, and that is Bethany. I'm just bragging.
Yeah, you should shoot me an email about that. I'll sign up. So we, again, have talked about a lot of important things. Campaign finance reform is the number one. Overturning Citizens United, making sure that we codify that companies are not people. That impacts so much more policy than just campaign finance, but it is critical. I like the idea of term limits. I think age cap might be valuable. I don't know. We can explore that. And then I've got a quirkier one, which is in 1929, I believe, there's something called the Apportionment Act, which essentially limited how many members of the House there could be. So before that, members of the House represented about 100,000 people. This district is over 700,000 people that are represented. So if we were to repeal that, not even innovate new legislation, just repeal that law that was passed almost a century ago, it would expand the House dramatically. It would actually completely dilute a lot of the corruption and the side dealings and a lot of the way that the House is currently very fractured and broken. So I would really advocate to repeal that, and I think that would actually fix a lot of the problems that currently operate in the House. Or don't operate.
Well, as someone who's last, I agree with a lot of what has already been said. But the one thing that I want to say about the election campaign reform and why it's so important to get money out of politics too. We talked earlier about building that pipeline. To get into leadership, you need to actually fundraise for others. And that's why this is a cycle that you have to get elected, you have to keep dial for dollars, and that's how you move up, that's how you get the committees that you want. All of this needs to be cut out so that regular people who want to stand with other regular people, to stand with working families, could actually get a shot to get things done. Oh, well, first of all, thank you so much to the committee and Dave for allowing us this opportunity, and thank you all for coming out on this really cold day. I am running for Congress because I believe you need someone with both the lived experience and the professional experience. As someone who beat MAGA, and the only one who here that could say that I have experience beating MAGA, a MAGA Republican back in 2018, and have been fighting against MAGA extremism for the last 7 years in office to deliver for the people. We need someone who can not only stand with the people, but really understand the struggles of the people, because I know what it's like to have to stand in the food pantry line. I know what it's like to live in public housing and being vulnerable. And this is exactly why I've spent my entire career in public service, and I intend on continuing to do this work in organizing and actually meeting people where they're at, and particularly reaching out to those who feel so disconnected from government, to show them that government can be a source of good and can really do service and move our state, our commonwealth, and our country forward.
At the end of the day, we are all in this fight together. Everybody on this stage, everybody in this room. And fundamentally, we have the power to change these political systems. We really can. But in order to do so, we have to take immediate, concrete action, and we have to do it collectively. We have to do it together. This is not about one person. This is about this entire coalition of not just the Mass Sixth, but the entire country. But we certainly can be leaders in that regard. I fundamentally think that, I keep saying fundamentally over and over and over, but it is really fundamentals. We have a choice in this race. It's not really a matter of whether or not a Democrat or Republican is going to get elected in the Mass Six. Odds are it's going to be a Democrat. And so you get to choose someone on this stage, and it's up to you to decide what kind of Democrat you want to send. What sort of track record, what sort of work, what sort of background, all those different pieces. And so as you analyze each of us, ask all your questions, chat with us after, I want you to really think about that. And I want you to think about what your values are, what our values are, and what we're each going to bring. And I will hope that I can earn your vote, and that you might consider joining the movement to reclaim patriotism and stand up for the values of what this country is founded on. Thank you.
I don't have to tell anyone in this room that this is an incredibly scary time. Prices keep going up. Housing costs are up. Every single day, the news gets more and more horrifying. And we know that in a month or two, it's just going to be even worse. So it's an inflection point. And I think so many of us are realizing all too well now that our democracy is literally at stake, and that we should not take for granted that we wake up every day to a country that we love. And so the question is, in this inflection point, who will you elect, and what experience does that person have to be able to be ready on day one to fight for the right things and to stand up to this president while also standing up for our most vulnerable communities in this district. I've spent my career working at the highest levels at the White House, in City Hall in Boston, and as an Andover Town Select Board member. What I can tell you is government is a force for good, and that government can help people. But we need to send the people down there who understand how to operate and effectively deliver on day one. And I humbly believe that I am the best candidate to be able to do that. So I humbly ask for your vote, and I thank you for your time.
Tip O'Neill said that all politics is local, and I think that that has never been more true. People are scared, people are hurting, and they have been for a long time. This is the first generation of Americans that is convinced that their children will be worse off than they are, and it's probably true. They don't think that government listens to them. They don't think that government cares. They don't think that government's delivering, and quite frankly, it isn't. But I have seen government work. I've been a part of make government work. When a local brewery owner came to me and said the only thing between him and opening his business was a USDA permit, I helped him get that business. When the mayor of Newburyport came to me with tears in her eyes and said people were getting sick swimming at our beaches, I worked with our legislative team, the New Hampshire delegation, Rep. Lori Trahan's office, to pass legislation to require municipalities to let people know when they discharge raw sewage into the rivers. And when the head of the GE union came to me and said, my workforce is about to retire, I worked to create a $10 million workforce training program to get women and people of color and others the job training they need for advanced manufacturing jobs in this district. I believe I have an unparalleled understanding of this district, of the community, of its people, and I also understand how to get things done in Washington, D.C. I appreciate your time, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. My first exposure to Congress was as a new grad out of Salem State, and I went to Joe Moakley's office in South Boston. I was unable to afford to move to Washington and earn a $16,000 a year salary because I had taken out loans and needed to start paying them. So I took a 40-hour-a-week job after hours and started working for him as a congressional intern, and wanted to do foreign policy, and the closest thing he said that they had was immigration work. I started doing constituent immigration work and ended up in the immigration space for 15 years. I worked with Ted Kennedy on one of the last comprehensive immigration reform bills that this country's ever seen. Speeded up to the past 10 years, I myself didn't think I'd be standing in front of you tonight, as I had debilitating mental health issues after the birth of my first child, and I was convinced that it was time for me to close my eyes and never wake up ever again. What I did from there was start fighting for moms, as it's the reason why moms are dying, is suicide and self-inflicted harm and substance use. I've created a national movement that has brought $100 million to the United States. I did this in the State House. I did it in the United States Congress. I'm on the front lines making sure that women are protected, that our elders are protected, that mental health is protected, our veterans. I can start this job on day one. I've done it for you before. I ask for your vote. I ask for your support, and I thank you so much for having me here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks again for organizing. This is the best of democracy. Respect everybody on this stage, but we are in serious times. Obviously, our democracy is under attack, and we need people with the maturity and the experience and the common sense to get things done and bring people together. I've done that through the course of my career in the private sector. I've worked with government, and I'm part of this community. I've lived here. I care about the people. I care about community, and we need to rebuild that. We need people in DC that aren't just going to be on CNN, that aren't going to be worried about what party leadership thinks. They care about this community. And so what I want to focus on is building that opportunity, giving things to people we're taking away things from the most vulnerable. And I think that's what I want to focus. I want to focus on public service again. And I'll just leave it with this. You know, the one thing I tell my kids if they're playing sports or school, I say there's two things you can control: your effort and your attitude. And no one will outwork me. I'll give 110% if I'm fortunate enough to be in this role, and my attitude would be positive. And I think everyone here is optimistic. Even with all the craziness going on in the world, you're optimistic because you're here. We're going to get this done, and we're going to bring it back.
My partner and I have made Middleton our home, and I stood up to challenge Seth Moulton because I love my home. I believe that America deserves better than what we have, and I think that I bring experience that no one who's come up through one of the conventional pathways is going to bring. We need somebody in Congress who understands how the internet works. We need someone in Congress who is prepared for the coming technology and the revolution that that's going to bring, and is going to fight to make sure that the companies employing robots pay taxes the same way companies employing people do. And that's what I'm standing up for, is the not just the problems today, but the problems in the future, that we can build a better world where those technologies benefit all of us the same way washing machines did, instead of just making a few wealthy Americans a little bit richer. And if you're interested in learning more about me, my positions, my platform, go to bethfordemocracy.com. Thank you.
I'd like to ask everybody, let's stand up. Let's give a round of standing ovation to our great candidates. Yes, that's a real thing. Thank you. Wonderful candidates, wonderful district, and wonderful things we're going to do together. Couple quick words before we leave. We're here to become informed voters. We're going to make great choices on what we do in November, but just voting isn't enough. If you aren't on the Ipswich Democrats email list and you want to find out about other things you can do, please sign up on the way out. We all need to do things besides just on Election Day.